All right, Jake has joined us, and we will get started with questions for him with Jesse.
Jake, there seems to be a lot of potential in the rest of the tight end group to potentially help you this season. Who has stood out to you and why?
I think that's a tough question. But I mean, I think everybody in the room, I mean, even Jack Pugh, they're doing a lot, and I mean, they're improving every day, and that's the really cool thing to watch. Is I mean, going back, me and Ash went back and we watched some of his first practices, and just like where he's come from them is mind blowing. Like I mean, even but like as a freshman, we're getting tossed. He was getting twisted, tossed. Now he's working his technique, getting his hands inside, working his long arm, throwing arms. But it's awesome to watch. And I mean, not just him, Clay, Rucci, those guys are improving every day. And you can see it. The energy's up in the room. The energy's up out on the field. It's definitely a different feeling, and it's exciting. It kind of just juices everybody else up for sure.
Go to Jeff.
Jake, you mentioned Eschenbach, and I remember talking to him about what he did in high school, you know, skinny wide receiver who was never asked to block because he couldn't. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of what you were asked to do in high school. Do you see any similarities in the paths you two guys have taken? Not saying he's going to match your numbers at any point, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, definitely not blocking anybody in high school and switching over to college level ball and having to block 300-pound DNs. I mean, it is definitely a big change. But I mean, you can tell he's worked at it over the years, whether it be spring ball or in season, whether it be scout team or just young guys stuff. But he's worked at it, and he's got to the point where now he can block those 300-pound DNs, and he can execute a pin block so the other lineman can pull around him. And he's getting the job done, and it's really cool to watch. But yeah, I mean, we both have a long way to go. I mean, he's a little bit faster than me, so I wouldn't say we're quite alike, but yeah. I mean, he's working, and he's definitely going to make an impact this year for sure.
Go to Jake.
I'll say, Jake, you mentioned Jack Pugh. When it comes to from where you started and where he started, what's the process of learning that position, going from high school to college, and just how do you build off of that? And how are you seeing guys like Cam Large and Cole Dakovich doing that as well, heading into their second years too?
Right. I think those guys, I think they have it tough, really. I mean, they didn't have those spring balls, Cam and Cole, and that's tough. That's a time where you really hone in on your craft, and you're not playing a game, so you can just take it day by day, figure it out. And that helps tremendously. And to not have that it just makes you have to work that much more. And those guys, Cole and Cam, they've embraced it, and they're asking questions at all times. They're texting me, Coach Turner, just for that extra knowledge. And that's what you got to do to be able to get back from that. And Jack Pugh, I mean, the kid's already better than I was at his age. He's coming in. First day, he probably couldn't do much blocking. Second day, he's starting to hit dudes, throw it in there. Third day, he's just launching, blocking big guys, blocking some of the twos. It's really fun to watch. And you can see him start to make those steps to getting really good and just fitting into that tight end role.
Go to Steve.
Just wondering what feedback you were getting when you were deciding whether to come back for this season, and ultimately what went into your decision in deciding to come back rather than take the next step, and what you wanted to add to your game this year.
I knew I was staying. I'd say probably middle of the year. I just didn't feel like it was my last year yet. I didn't like 2020. I mean, just being 2020 what it was. But yeah, I didn't feel like I was done yet. And after the Mayo Bowl, guys were like saying goodbye to some of the seniors, and some guys would come up to me and be like, "Hey, are you leaving or not?" And no, I'm not leaving. There's no way. Not ending like this. So I think it was a pretty easy decision for me. Most of it was kind of just, when am I going to tweet it? Let everybody else know. But I mean, I think most of the guys on the team knew I was staying. I knew, my family knew. a question really.
Back to Jeff.
Jake, you mentioned 2020. I mean, 2019, you guys end up in the Rose Bowl. 2020, your schedule is affected. Can you put into words how much different it was to try to play football last year and enjoy it compared to previous years?
Right. It's a big jump going from 80,000 in the stands to 0, and just the little things too, just being able to interact with your guys outside of the stadium. Just the little stuff, going to go get food with your guys, or even just go and hang out, take a little stress off, just anything. You can't do it. You know what I mean? It's that bond that you're trying to create with your guys to go out there and go to battle with. You can't do that anymore. And so you got to find little ways, whether it be video games or calling somebody on the phone, FaceTiming somebody. You just got to make it happen. I mean, and then when we got to the season getting canceled, it's hard to get in that rhythm and stay in a rhythm where you're playing football and you're kind of building off what you had last game. Just not playing one week can really affect you and your team. And yeah, 2020 sucked. Yeah. That's all I can say.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go to Colton.
Jake, you went through some stuff physically last year. I know your shoulder, a couple of times you had to go out of games, but you were able to come back in. Just how do you feel physically now? And is there anything you're trying to do this offseason to just add to the durability that you've shown through your career?
Yeah, I was beat up last year a little bit. I think now I'm good. Just being able to take this offseason, kind of relax, get back in the weight room, and just stay on top of my body, whether it be cold tub, sauna, going into the weight room after hours, getting some extra stuff with those guys. And Coach Sneeze being super helpful, going in there, he's body tempering, getting everything right if I need it, extra stretching, stuff like that, is big time. And just utilizing the tools that I have around me. There's great staff that I have around me. They're willing to do anything to just make sure my body's right for next season. And I mean, that's all I could ask for. Just got to take advantage of it for sure.
All right, we'll wrap things up with one more from Jesse.
Jake, you talked about how much 2020 sucked. Obviously, the team struggled with consistency. There weren't a lot of healthy guys. How much do you look at what happened on the field last season as more of a fluke or not really representative of what Wisconsin can do this season?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it so much as a fluke. I mean, it's kind of, yeah, I would just say it was like 2020. It sucked. I mean, it was just that year. But I know we're special. I mean, I feel like we got all the right pieces in all the right places right now. And I mean, the energy's up. And I honestly can't remember a time where we go into practice 9 in spring ball and everybody's juiced up, ready to rumble. But you can feel it around here. I mean, whether you're on the field between the lines or you're off the field, just in the facility, you can feel the energy's up. And I think that's just what we need right now, off season, and just carry that all the way up to September.
All right, thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. You want me to hit continue? All right, we've got Hayden with us now, and we will go ahead and get started with questions for him with Jesse.
Hayden, when you were in the game, most times last season, you were in there to block. As you try to expand your role, do you see yourself breaking out a little bit more and being used as a pass catcher? Is that something you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely working on it. Right now, still just focusing on blocking and really whatever I'm needed to do right now. But yeah, definitely still work on routes and at the same time, just work on all aspects of my game though.
Good, Jeff.
Hayden, Mickey was talking about the fact that Jake Ferguson had basically all the tight end catches last year. And I'm just curious, the younger guys behind Jake, what do you think you need to do collectively to spread out the productivity a little bit more?
I think it really comes with just being accountable and dependable with routes and stuff like that. Like Ferg has obviously proven himself. But I think guys like me, Clay, Ash, Jaylan, it's really just being consistent with our routes and being in places where the quarterback knows we're going to be and getting open. So I think it's just being dependable in that aspect.
Steve?
Just Ryan, I've seen you've put on some weight since last season. What did you play at last year? What are you hoping to play at this year? And how much of a difference has it made so far from what you've been able to tell this spring?
Yeah, last year, so I came in at like 250 and I've like been like consistent 250 pretty much. So last year I played like sometimes a little above 250, sometimes a little below. But this winter I got up to mid 260s and it's definitely been helping blocking. I'm hoping to carry that into the season too.
Go to Colton.
All right, perfect. Hayden, Coach Turner was talking about just all the guys in the tight end room having a little bit of different roles. Everybody has some different skills. What do you think you bring to the room that's maybe a little bit unique or different from the other guys?
Yeah, I think my aspect is, I say kind of from last season too, focus more on that blocking. I'm on the heavier side of the room, so I think that definitely helps. But right now, I think that's the biggest aspect of my game. We're still trying to work on like routes and pass catching, but definitely I'd say my blocking.
Go to Jake.
I'll say, Hayden, with the amount of snaps you got last year, just what were a couple of takeaways that you had from your performance last season to build going into this spring?
I think I still remember stepping on the field against Illinois. I had like a false start penalty. I was definitely a little nervous those first couple of snaps, but I think just gaining that confidence through being on the field was huge for me last year. So definitely going to be building upon that. And then I think what would have helped is like a foundation of technique, which is what I've been building. And then with that along comes confidence in playing. And I think the biggest thing is when you're confident, you can just cut it loose. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do next year.
All right, we'll wrap things up for Hayden with one more from Jesse.
Hayden, you came in with Clay. It seems like he's in position to maybe have a little bit bigger role this year. What stands out about him and the things you think he can add to the tight end group on the field this season?
Yeah, so me and Clay live together. He's one of my best friends, and I'm super excited for opportunities he's got this year. His route running definitely makes him stand out, and his blocking too. I know, like I've been watching him during spring ball and some reaches. He just tears off. He's super aggressive in blocking too. So I think having both of those things helps him stand out. I think he's got a good shot this year. I'm excited to watch him.
All right, thanks, Hayden. Appreciate your time. All right, we've got Jaylan with us now, and we'll get started with questions for him with Jesse.
Jaylan, what's the transition been like moving to tight end at the college level, and what have been some of the biggest challenges you've tried to address here in the last year or so?
Yeah, so I mean, the transition has been more fun than anything. I think going back to where I've really been at my best, which was at the offensive side of the ball, has just been comforting to me. And having all the guys with me, having Ferg as a role model, and Ash and Rucci, and having all those guys helping me out, and Coach Turner, I think it hasn't been a bad transition. I think it's been good, and I'm learning quick. And I'm really just trying to figure out what I can do to help the team and how I can use my athleticism.
Go to Jeff.
Jaylan, kind of following up on that. First of all, Mickey said you've been banged up a little bit, so you haven't been able to get as much reps as you would like. But when you are healthy and you get a little more experience, what do you hope you can bring to that position?
Right. For me, I kind of just always been like adept with my speed and my ability to get separation and to make plays. So I feel I can bring the same type of energy that Ferg brings, or the same type of energy that Rucci brings, but in the pass game as well as the run game, trying to just do my best to be me and be individual and not really try to compare myself to anybody, because I know that my ceiling is going to be different from the other guys, and theirs as well as from mine. So really just trying to use my athleticism, my speed, and hopefully just make plays.
Any other questions for Jaylan? Go to Colton.
Jim, when you guys have a group, especially in this tight end room where it's so many guys competing for roles, just what do you think is going to separate you in Coach Turner's mind? Like, what are some of the things that you need to prove here in spring or when you get to fall to earn some of those reps?
Yeah, so for me, I started most of the season at receiver, working on my routes and working on my hands and really helping that transition to offense from defense and trying to figure out what I can do to impact people and just be a threat on the field. So I feel like with me being on the field, I feel there's more threats out there. There's Ferg, there's me, there's KP, there's Danny, and there's a sense of fear that like the tight ends are also bringing that power, just like the receivers are as well. So like I said before, really just using my athleticism, my speed to kind of threaten those safeties and hopefully cause a lot of mismatches between those linebackers trying to guard me and more of a different body. So
Back to Jesse.
You talked about that you feel like you're learning pretty quick and you did some wide receiver work. Can you share what are some of the really small details that you've had to learn about being a tight end, whether it's footwork or anything else that you just didn't have to worry about when you came in playing defense?
yeah. So being under Coach Rudy as the coordinator, well now Coach Chris, but being under him, it's all about details. So me just coming from defense to offense really isn't as simple as me just learning the plays. It's more like you have to develop habits that the other guys have had since high school. You have to work on your hands and constantly looking at your footwork and how you can improve on your blocking, hand placement, and seeing plays, understanding the scheme. Like when I came to offense, if you just learn tight end, you're not going to understand the offense. It's a lot more complex than that. And you have to kind of be like a offensive lineman. You're also like a receiver. And for me, in like a receiver O-line body, it's different. It's difficult as well. So the schemes are complex. There's so many things you have to focus on and key details that you kind of have to like look into. So that's been a challenge, but at the same time, it's been so much fun and it's been so easy for me to just like watch the film and want to look at the film and try to understand best. But I just think that the hands that I had to develop at receiver, the footwork I had to develop for my route running, and then also the physicality of run blocking was also another thing I had to learn as well. So it's been a combination of a bunch of things, but it's been great.
Go to Jake.
Jaylan, Coach, Mickey had said that you should be full go by next week. Have you had a chance to get some reps during the spring? But even when you haven't, what type of mental notes are you taking watching the tight ends or watching reps with the offense?
Yeah, so I practiced for the first week, a little bit into the second week, but I was struggling with the hamstring injury. So coming back from that, I've really just been focusing on how can I get that separation? How can I work on my routes rather than just using my speed to out athleticize somebody or try to outspeed them, anything like that. It's really just been more of trying to create avenues like my route running so crisp that even if I didn't have speed, I'd be able to beat the guy, or my hands good enough to where I can catch and tuck and turn in the air. Are my eyes good on the coverages that I'm seeing? So really just being able to have the script in front of me and look at the guys as they do their plays and look at them do their progressions and their calls and different things like that. It's always something to learn. So for me, I'm still learning the whole position in general. So being out has allowed me to learn even more, really just absorb like what the other guys are doing and what Ferg is doing to be successful, Esch is doing to be successful, and also Rucci, Clay, and all the guys. So really just been still learning. So.
All right. Thanks, Jaylan. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
All right. We've got Jack with us now. We'll wrap things up with him and we'll get started with questions from Jeff.
Yeah, Jack, we're talking to Jake Ferguson earlier, and he told a story about the two of you looking back early on, like your first year trying to block guys, making that transition from wide receiver to tight end. And I'm just curious what you remember from those early days looking at that tape and where you are now.
I remember from the early days, spring ball at least, we were down a lot of guys. I kind of got thrown in there. I didn't really know much about like blocking or anything. So that kind of helped me, and I've kind of improved slowly throughout, and I've gotten a lot better, a lot more consistent with blocking. And the group as a whole this year, we were just kind of talking about in the back, we're a lot closer than usual. I know, I'm sure a lot of teams say that, but we all feel like this is the closest we've been. This is the closest I've felt with a group since I've been here. So yeah, it's been good. Definitely a lot of improvement.
Go to Jesse.
Jack, I wanted to ask you about Clay Cundiff. He hasn't had a lot of in-game opportunities, but from what you've seen, what stands out about him and what he could potentially bring to the tight end group?
Clay brings a lot of fire. I think he's going to be a big playmaker in the future because so far in practice, even throughout this past month, he's made a lot of plays. He's had a lot of big blocks, big hits. And like I said, he's got a lot of fire. So I think he's going to be a big player in the future.
Colton.
Yeah, Coach Turner mentioned your catch against Indiana being something that like he saw that was one of those plays that he saw the progressions you've made, like learning to read the defense and then doing the right things. Is that something, or is that a play that you kind of put in your back of your mind to try to build off of and gives you some confidence going forward?
Yeah, I think that a first catch is huge to kind of like, you know, get it out of the way and kind of solidify like, yeah, I belong here. Like I read the coverage right. I knew the play. And yeah, I think that really helps with confidence. Just knowing that kind of gives you that reassurance that like, yes, I can do it and all that. And yeah, I feel like I've improved a lot. Like that play, for example, I used to kind of be more of like, okay, what's the route? Like, let's say it's a dig. Okay, run the dig. But now it's more like, okay, what coverage is it? What do I do based on this coverage? And so I think I've improved a lot that way. And it kind of showed up there. So that kind of reassured me that like I'm on the right track and gave me a lot of confidence.
Back to Jeff.
Yeah, you know, Mickey mentioned confidence too. And for a young player, you don't always have it when you first get in, especially if you're making a position switch. Where was your confidence level when you were switched to tight end and to try to develop, you know, that you could be a playmaker?
To be honest, I mean, when I first came in, I was a walk-on too. So, you know, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't have the craziest amount of confidence because I really had never blocked in my life. But one thing Coach Turner always told me was never make an excuse for yourself. And that always stuck with me. So like, don't make an excuse that, oh, I used to be a receiver, I don't know how to block. Like you can't say that. So, and that kind of helps you to push forward because when you don't make excuses, you just constantly improve and you're not kind of like falling back on that excuse.
Back to Jesse.
Jack, I think you might be the only guy in the tight end room that has a catch other than Jake so far at Wisconsin. How much have you as a group talked about having enough guys to potentially help him to make the offense more versatile this season?
We talk about it all the time. Like Coach Turner will tell us like, we know Ferg's going to play, but it's just a matter of who can help him out because, you know, a guy can't necessarily always get 70 plays every single game and remain healthy. It's tough to do. So that kind of backup and, you know, that's huge for our group and for him to, you know, stay healthy and continue to play at like the maximum level.
Back to Colton.
Like you've been able to put on some weight and kind of take that next step physically, getting ready to play this position. Just how much do you feel like that's helping you on the field? Just being a little bit stronger and, you know, having that confidence that you mentioned before.
With confidence, it's a huge boost. I mean, when I came in, I was like, I don't even think I was 200. I think I was like 198 was my specific number. I'm like 245 now. So it kind of makes you feel like, oh, like I belong here. And then also physically, I kind of felt like every 20 pounds I gained, I could feel a significant difference in my blocking abilities. I felt like every 20 pounds was kind of like a benchmark. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm moving this guy more versus just like hanging on for dear life. So both physically and confidence wise, it helps a ton.
All right. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate your time.